My grandmother used to tell me, "Men don't cry." When she passed, I stood at her grave silent. But when I found the old letters she kept, mine, full of childhood tears, my chest cracked open. I cried for her, for me, for all those moments I was told to be stone. My grandmother frequently admonished me with the words, "Men don't cry." When she passed away, I stood at her grave, silent and composed, my emotions restrained as she had taught me. However, when I discovered the old letters she had preserved, missives I had written as a child, filled with the tears I was told to suppress, my resolve shattered. My chest felt as though it had cracked open, and I wept, for her, for myself, and for all the moments I had been instructed to remain as unyielding as stone. Grief, they say, arrives in waves, yet on the cold morning of my grandmother's burial, I experienced no such tide. No tears welled in my eyes, no heaviness settled in my heart. Only a dull, persistent hum in my chest, akin to the sound of a refrigerator in an empty house. She had been ill for months, her strength fading gradually, yet her absence felt unreal, as if she had merely stepped out to tend her garden and might return at any moment, humming a Sinatra tune and chiding the tomatoes for growing too slowly. My grandmother, Eleanor, raised me in a manner my parents could not. My father was perpetually consumed by work, a construction supervisor who left before dawn and returned after dusk, exhausted and distant. My mother, though physically present, drifted through life emotionally unavailable, lost in her own quiet struggles. Grandmother became my foundation, not a soft, comforting presence, but a pillar of granite. Her posture was always erect, her rules inflexible, her attire immaculately pressed. Her mantra, "Men don't cry," was a constant refrain, delivered with unwavering conviction. I heard it at 6, when I scraped my knee on the gravel driveway and bit my lip to stifle sobs. At 13, when my dog, Rusty, died and I hid my grief behind a clenched jaw. At 16, when my first love ended and I nearly choked on the effort to remain stoic in her presence. I did not resent her for this. It was simply her nature, a product of her own history, I suspected. Perhaps she had endured too much pain herself, loss, betrayal, or hardship, and had locked away her emotions, folding them neatly like the linen napkins she kept for guests, useful only in controlled, formal settings. I imagined her youth, growing up in the 1940s, a time of war and scarcity, where survival demanded resilience and vulnerability was a luxury few could afford. She never spoke of her past, but her stern demeanor hinted at a life shaped by necessity, not sentiment. When she passed, I anticipated an outpouring of feeling, sorrow, anger, relief. Yet I felt nothing but numbness. At the funeral, my girlfriend, Sarah, clasped my hand, her touch warm against my cold fingers. My cousin, Emily, wept openly beside me, her sobs echoing through the small church. Relatives and friends delivered eulogies, praising grandmother's legendary lemon cake, her knack for mending anything broken, and her role as the family's unyielding glue. I stood there, dry-eyed, nodding mechanically, as if submerged underwater, sounds and sensations dulled. That night, I stared into the bathroom mirror, my reflection pale and expressionless, and told myself, "There is nothing wrong with you. You are simply strong." The words rang hollow, a self-deception I could not fully embrace. The truth emerged a week later, as I assisted in clearing out her home. The modest two-bedroom ranch, where she had lived for 50 years, remained unchanged. Same scratchy plaid couch, same faded floral carpet, same faint scent of wilted roses and old newspapers. My uncle, Thomas, and my sister, Claire, joined me, sorting through decades of belongings. Chipped china, faded photographs, gardening tools worn smooth by her hands. I volunteered to tackle her bedroom closet, a cramped space stuffed with boxes and memories. Beneath a stack of yellowed towels, I discovered a metal cookie tin, its lid marked with my name in bold black Sharpie. I assumed it held childhood mementos, perhaps birthday cards I had crafted or Polaroids from family picnics. Instead, I found dozens of envelopes, each bearing my handwriting, my words, my childhood self laid bare. I recognized some immediately. A letter from age 7, scrawled in uneven pencil, confessing my hurt when classmates mocked me for crying after striking out in t-ball. Another from 10, written in a shaky hand, lamenting the loss of my best friend, Daniel, who moved away, leaving me isolated. One from 12, penned in the basement after a night of my parents' screaming matches, admitting I felt broken, that I cried myself to sleep, that I despised my own tears. Others I had forgotten. Notes from 8, describing a bully at school. From 14, confessing my fear of failing a math test. From 17, pouring out my anger after a fight with Dad. Each letter was a relic of pain I had entrusted to her, then buried in my memory. She had kept them all, every single one, neatly folded, dated in her precise script. Some bore her annotations on the back. Talked to him about this next day. Made his favorite spaghetti that week. Checked in with his teacher. I sat on the dusty closet floor, the tin in my lap, and a revelation unfolded. I saw her anew, not as the rigid matriarch demanding I be a stoic soldier, but as a woman who, perhaps, struggled to express affection in tenderness. She had armed me with strength, believing the world would be harsh, unyielding to a boy who wept. These letters, preserved with care, were evidence of her quiet love. A love she couldn't voice, but safeguarded in secret. My chest cracked open, a sensation like a dropped plate shattering. Tears came, fierce and unrestrained, a torrent that startled my sister. She rushed to me, asking if I was hurt, but I couldn't speak. I wept for grandmother, for the love I hadn't fully understood. For myself, for the boy forced to swallow his pain like acid. For every moment I had molded myself into stone to meet her expectations. It was not a brief release, but a deluge. Years of grief, sadness, guilt, relief, anger, and love, all breaking free. I had been submerged for decades, and now I surfaced, gasping for air. I spent hours reading the letters, tracing the arc of my childhood. A note from 9 revealed my fear of thunderstorms, begging her to sit with me. She'd done so, I recalled, wordless but present, her hand on my shoulder. Another, from 15, confessed my shame at not being athletic, not being enough. Her note on the back read, "Took him fishing, let him talk." She hadn't dismissed me, I realized. She'd listened, responded in her own way. Cooking my favorite meals, checking on me quietly, saving my words as if they were precious. That night I returned to her grave alone. No crowd, no speeches, just the moon casting silver light over the trees, the fresh dirt still mounded above her. I brought no flowers. They felt unnecessary. Instead, I carried the tin of letters. I sat by the headstone, the cold granite against my back, and read one aloud, the letter from 13 where I'd written, "I'm scared I'll never be enough, Grandma. I try so hard, but I'm not strong like you want." My voice broke, and tears fell again, soaking the page. She had never seen me cry in life, her lessons too deeply ingrained. But in that quiet cemetery, I felt she saw me now, understood me in a way she couldn't before. I began to unravel her story, piecing it together from fragments. Stories from my uncle, old letters she'd written to her sister, a diary I found later in a dresser. Born in 1932, she'd grown up during the Great Depression. Her father lost to war, her mother working 2 jobs to feed 3 children. She married young, at 19, to my grandfather, a kind but stoic man who died when my father was a boy. She raised 2 sons alone, working as a seamstress, her hands calloused from needle and thread. Vulnerability, I realized, had been a risk she couldn't take. Tears wouldn't pay bills or shield her family from hardship. Men Don't Cry wasn't cruelty. It was her shield, her way of preparing me for a world she saw as unforgiving. The weeks that followed were a journey of redefinition. I kept the letters, not hidden away, but in a wooden box on my desk. I read them often, reminding myself that the boy I was didn't need to be tough. He needed understanding, comfort, a space to feel. Sarah sat with me one evening, her hand on mine, as I read a letter aloud, tears streaking my face. She didn't judge, only listened, and I felt lighter, unburdened. I spoke with Claire, sharing memories of grandmother. Her sharp wit, her secret habit of feeding stray cats, her quiet pride when I graduated high school. We laughed, cried, and began to heal. I visited the grave often, sometimes alone, sometimes with family. One day, I brought my father, now retired, his own grief softened by time. He told me grandmother had been hard on him too, pushing strength over sentiment. But he saw now how she'd loved fiercely, if imperfectly. We stood together, silent but connected, and I felt a shift, a release of the need to be stone. I am not stone anymore. I cry when I need to, when a sad film ends, when I miss her, when life weighs heavy. I no longer care who witnesses it. Grandmother couldn't hold me the way I craved, not with embraces or soft words. But she saved every piece of my heart I gave her, tucked away in that tin, a quiet testament to her love. Perhaps that was her way of crying for me, of bearing the weight I couldn't. I honor her now by living fully, feeling deeply, loving openly, and embracing the man I am, tears and all.